New episode Sprint Ride Option Podcast. I am Andrew Pasquini. With me, as always, if I were asked about him, I'd probably say that Jason guy is a cool guy. Jason Aponte, we are part of the Blue Wire Hustle Network. Jason, it's been a week. How you doing? Practices have started, OTAs have started, but I just want to know how Jason Aponte is doing right now.
I'm doing great, Andrew. Thank you for asking. Everybody always asks what's going on with the 49ers, and nobody really ever asks, how are you, Jason? So it's really nice that someone else asked me something like that.
Well, yeah, it's for those who are watching or those who are listening, this whole episode just going to be us talking about Jason's day. Just to give you a heads up. No, we're going to dive into 49ers. I don't know. Maybe that's what Jason wanted today. I don't know.
Well, I would say this discussion would seem to go over better than our last chit chat before we talked about 49ers football, because we got some blowback from, our friends' take.
Yeah, I don't even want to touch that one anymore, to be honest. I had a better thing.
Who knew that was such a hot button issue?
I had a better thing we can open up with today.
Sure.
I know you're a big wait for the structure to come out guy with contracts.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to get see what your thoughts are on the big signing the other day with Guy Fieri's 3-year, $80 million deal with Food Network. I know you're a big wait for the deal, the details to come out, but what's your instant reaction?
My instant reaction is, realistically, I don't know why he didn't test the market a little bit more. It seemed like he jumped at the first offer, which probably could have been the best offer. But if I was in his position, I would have brought in another network to just kind of throw things off. So he wants to be on Food Network. I would have called up Cartoon Network. I would have called up ESPN and said, what are you guys thinking? Do you think that we can incorporate any sort of food into watching Ed and Eddie and things like that on Cartoon Network? Or maybe during SportsCenter, cut to a segment on things like that. But he obviously took an offer that was right there in front of him. And yeah, honestly, if that's the one that he wanted to, if that was the best one, he took it. I just was a little surprised that he didn't touch free agency for a little bit longer.
I didn't actually expect a real analysis of it, and I appreciate it and love it. Yeah, I definitely read a thing that like diners, drive-ins, and dives makes the network like $300 million last year or something like that. I feel like Guy could have gotten a little more money, but that's just beyond me. We're here to talk 49ers. For those of you who listen to the podcast only and you say, boy, these guys talk about really weird things at the start of shows, it's for the live crowd, give people a chance to come in. So that's why we always open with just whatever comes. More often than not, it's just whatever pops into my head. I don't even tell Jason what I open the shows with. But, Jason, we got some 49ers stuff we can talk about. OTA start yesterday, so it's pretty exciting. Everybody in the building at the same time for the first time officially. It's an exciting day. Unfortunately, the Niners the 2020 season with all the injuries, it comes out that Jeff Wilson did they say when he tore his meniscus? Was this a yesterday thing?
So it came out today. I think it was last week or something like that. It literally was in a weight room. Apparently got out of his seat, turned, heard a pop, tore meniscus. 4 to 6 months. Unbelievable. How? I did the same thing just to see if it's possible. I got up and I turned. Nothing popped. My back just hurt. But honestly, what a freaky way to start this already.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate start, but it's obviously with the severity of the injury, you don't like the length, but it's not a season ender, which is something the Niners really had a hard time with last year. So at least they'll get Jeff Wilson at some point in the season. 4 to 6 months, 4 months gets you to the start of October. 6 months gets you to the start of December. So
I think John Lynch came out today. He had to hold a press conference to talk about it because there was so much confusion as to when this actually happened. And he's going to be on PUP for the first 6 games at least. So he'll be missing the first 6, but that doesn't mean that he's automatically off. Remember, when you activate a player off PUP, you have a 2-week window to activate him so he can practice. So 6 weeks seems to be at least what we're going to be missing with Jeff Wilson Jr.
Perfect. Thank you for that, because I did not see John Lynch said that. So that's why we have 2 people on this show. Jason corrects me when I miss it. But yeah, so if it happened last week, then the draft had nothing. So the 2 running backs had nothing to do with that, because that was kind of the first. I hate saying, because I tweeted about it too, but that was kind of the first take to come about it, was that the 49ers drafted 2 running backs for that reason. But if it happened last week, then that's not the case. But now it's one of those things where, hey, it's probably good the 49ers drafted 2 running backs. Now, Jeff Wilson, like, honestly, I've said it on this show too, probably one of my favorite Niners to watch. Just the way he runs, how powerful he is. I think the 49ers will miss that at the start of the season. And thankfully, it's not a lower half of the body tear. It's something that people recover from, and it doesn't typically have long-standing effects. So that's the good news, at least on that front, that A, it happened in May and not in the middle of the season, and B, it's not like, other body parts that are more scary for a running back to injure.
Yeah, honestly, and when you listen to what Kyle Shanahan said right after the draft, saying you can't have that amount of injuries again. And remember, we talked about it, Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, they're both not under contract. So it made sense to move to get to 2 running backs because they look to fill those roles. But now those roles are probably going to have to be filled immediately as opposed to being a luxury. So it's kind of good if they had the foresight to do this. And that was the first thing that I thought of as well. Did they know about this injury before? Is that what made that happen? But John Lynch went out today and cleared all that up. So it's probably a good thing that they did at this point, especially considering this may be the last year that we see Jeff Wilson in a 49ers uniform. Not closing the door on it, but just the facts are the facts. He's not under contract, and neither is Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, and we'll transition to the other. I can't think of any good segue to move off of losing Jeff Wilson for 4 to 6 months. The other big news that really felt like came out yesterday was the progression of the Fred Warner contract extension talks. Everybody loves each other, and everybody wants Fred Warner to stay for forever. So hopefully that means something. That felt like, outside of the Jeff Wilson news, felt like the biggest thing to come out of yesterday, other than the quarterbacks, which we'll get into obviously for a second here. But I feel like the Fred Warner situation is a little more of a more pressing issue for the 49ers right now. It feels like the quarterback thing we have plenty of time to figure out. So yeah, what vibes? Because you watched the press conference when they talked about I almost said Kurt Warner, Fred Warner. They talked about Fred Warner and his extension. What vibes do you get on that?
So Kyle Shanahan basically said, we want Fred here. He's going to be a Niner for life. And for the people that are trying to correlate that with what happened with DeForest Buckner, he never said anything like that this late into the process with DeForest Buckner. And Fred echoed those sentiments. He went into his press conference and said, I'm literally not thinking about that. Everything's going to take care of itself. Also, one more thing that kind of lets you know that he really is not worried about it. He practiced fully, and he was one of the full people that practiced and participated, did every single drill without a contract. Goes to show you what he really thinks as far as his actions show, meaning that he understands that this is going to get done, and it's just a matter of if and not when. It's a matter of when and not if. So honestly, when it comes to this, anybody freaking out or anything like that about it, I wouldn't at this point. Everybody's saying all the right things, and I'm sure it'll get done. So, and Fred Warner, honestly, he's the coolest guy behind the mic at a press conference. Honestly, he seems so composed. Never once was frazzled by any sort of question. They brought it up, and he was just like, yeah, whatever. It's going to get done eventually. I have no worries about it or anything like that. Definitely the heart and soul of this team, I would say, on both sides of the ball. Absolutely.
Yeah, just the way they were both talking about each other, like this feels like a situation, like not even like everybody talking about DeForest Buckner, but like even the George Kittle situation, right? Like we never really heard any quotes like that come out. And that was never, as close to a DeForest Buckner situation. I understand the comparison, but the Niners got it done with Kittle, and we didn't hear any of this like, yeah, I love you, you love me, let's get this done, So yeah, it's something that I feel pretty good about, and I think the Niners and Warner feel good about it. And that's really that, and everything's just going to be speculation and thoughts until pen hits paper. So do we want to talk about the actual practice now that we got the news out of the way? Jimmy Garoppolo went 2 for 2 on his passes in front of the media. I think Trey Lance went 2 for 3 in front of the media. So currently
on 11 on 11s though. On 11 on 11 on 11. So that's important. So that's not important. 7 on 7. So 7 on 7s, it was a different story as well too. But I'll let you start with those numbers on the 11 on 11.
Oh, I was just going to make the joke that is Jimmy Garoppolo 33% better than Trey Lance at this point. Because, I was just trying to set that up. Like my thing is it's exciting to see, but we're nowhere near a decision. It really has felt like I don't know. Like obviously Jimmy is taking the first team snaps. He is in as the starter, and Trey Lance is taking the second team. But the way the players kind of talked about and the way Shanahan talked about it, this feels like more of a competition at this point than it is Jimmy's going to be the mentor type. I don't know when that like sort of transition happened of the feel with the team. Maybe it's just me reading too deep into it, but it really feels like it's maybe more of a competition, which I guess it always was going to be. But that's not what the team wanted you to think earlier this month. But now, I don't know. What vibe do you get with just the overall quarterback position without getting too deep into it? Because we're going to have 4 whole months to talk about it.
Honestly, from everything that I heard, and this is obviously coming from Grant Cohn, who actually jumped on my YouTube channel to talk about what he saw. From everything that he said he saw on 7-on-7s, and you know how hard he is on everybody. Mm-hmm. He said Jimmy looked decisive, and obviously he should be because he's been in the offense so much longer. But I think Jimmy understands what's in front of him, and he said he looked like a guy who was using this as fuel the right way. And we'll talk about the press conference because I think there's a lot more there with Jimmy Garoppolo's press conference. I believe that'll lend you to believe that thing as well. But from everything that he told me was, yeah, Trey Lance is a guy who is learning right away. So he's bound to make more mistakes on 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. One of them was an interception, which he hadn't done the entire time in his last year at NDSU. But Jimmy looked like he was stepping into his throws, decisive, knew where he wanted to go with the ball. And those are all good signs for a guy who is most likely playing for his position, not only on this team, but in this league as a starting quarterback. Not a bad start for the first day, honestly. Yeah,
and a lot of what I read, too, was he looks like he bulked up, and he touched on that in his press conference, too. We got I bulked up to try and stay healthy, which – it's also the time of year for the I'm in the best shape of my life type quotes. So like you wouldn't expect Jimmy Garoppolo to say any less about trying to figure things out. I think they specifically said like he did ankle strengthening exercises throughout the off season. So yeah, like I don't know, like the big thing for me on this is just it's the first look with everybody. It's the first time we're seeing them since the season ended, especially with Garoppolo. It's the first time we're going to see him since his season ended, his last game in Seattle. So it's take it as you may season, I guess we'll call it with the quarterback position.
Another thing. I'm sorry. Another thing about this is that Jimmy Garoppolo is notoriously a bad practice player. Mm-hmm. That's not even an opinion. That's something that I'm not even talking about the 5 interceptions before the Broncos game. I'm just talking about normal. He's a gamer. He's not a practice player. So if he's already kind of focused and looking good, also other tidbits that we heard, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are unguardable. Unfortunately, Diamadeo Lenore had a tough time trying to guard Deebo Samuel. He left him in the dust. Same thing with Ambry Thomas. They both had a tough time. That's a great sign. Deebo Samuel looks good. So does Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle really kind of worked off on the side from everything that we heard. But as far as Jimmy Garoppolo goes, if he's already doing things that he wasn't doing in practice, I know it's one day, right? And it's practice. Yeah, 7-on-7, 11-on-11s. Mm-hmm. But at this point, we can only report as what happened. And that's what happened. That's it. So
it's all we have to talk about right now is this, and it's a hell of a lot better than speculating who they're going to take at 3 and all that stuff. Yeah, you mentioned the receivers. The only receiver that didn't dress yesterday was Jalen Hurd, who was there rehabbing on the side field, so that's a good sign seeing him out there. Actually, the Niners only had 4 players not there yesterday. Nick Bosa, D Ford, Robbie Gould, and Jeff Wilson, who obviously, as we said, had the injury. So pretty good turnout early for the Niners. You mentioned Ayuk and Deebo. Something interesting I saw, Ayuk and Deebo were part of a group with Travis Benjamin, Mohamed Sanu, and Benny Fowler, who took kick return reps. So the Niners, I don't think we're going to see Deebo and Ayuk take majority of the kick returns just because they're your 1 and 2 receivers. But we saw it last year, or if Shanahan felt like they needed a good return, he would put Ayuk back there. So, yeah, I mean, really everything is just, that's an interesting thing to read about practice. So was there anything else that stood out outside of the quarterbacks that you saw? Because I have notes on a lot of things. So where do you want to start?
Oh, well, so one more thing. So Kyle was talking about the reason that on 11-on-11s, there was only about 5 snaps to get through. One, you have to think about it like this. The media availability for the OTAs was 1 day. So they're not going to put Trey in any spot where he's going to start to either struggle or anything like that. You don't want to put that out there, and you don't want to implement any of that stuff so you can leave him twisting in the wind a little bit. So he basically talked about, we have 4 or 5 guys right now that need reps, so it's hard to get them out and things like that. And you'll see a lot more of that. So, I mean, nothing to really worry about, I would say, with Trey. They're saying he missed high, threw an interception. It's fine. It's the first day of practice. And if the same way Jimmy Garoppolo's performance doesn't impress you, then Trey Lance's performance shouldn't get you nervous at all in any way. So if you're going to keep that logic with Jimmy doing well, then keep that same logic with Trey doing, poorly, if he even did. I wouldn't even say poorly, but yeah.
Well, how about a vote of confidence from George Kittle? Quote, he looks a little bit better than a rookie quarterback. So
that's amazing.
George Kittle he's definitely the hype guy of the 49ers, but I just don't think he's going to say that to say that. It sounds like he had Lance's best throw of the day came when the media left for the private part of the practices where the media is not there. Kittle talked about that a little bit. So, don't worry about Trey Lance. It's the first practice. If you want to read about these bad throws and be like, oh, this doesn't sound good, it's too early. It's way too early to worry about it. Something that I thought was interesting with Jeff Wilson out, Wayne Gallman was taking the second running back carries behind Raheem Mostert. So that, I don't know, like we should preface everything we say with this is the first practice of the season. Mm-hmm. It could be he's getting these carries because this is his first time with the system, all that stuff. But just something I thought was interesting that Gallman's taking the second most carries.
Yeah, I forget if it was Kyle or if it was Lynch that came out and said that he was, or it was Matt Barrows. He reported today that he is going to be the number 2 guy right behind him. And that makes total sense. Veteran, good pass blocker, can step right in. That, and honestly, I had him as the odd man out. Obviously, he's a lock now to make this roster, especially with Jeff Wilson out for the first 6 weeks. So, the Trey Sermon thing will happen, but it seems like going with what they know that Gallman can step in right away and contribute and be someone who is reliable. So I think that's really why you'll see things like that, because he's a veteran.
Another thing interesting, you want to hear some backup offensive line stuff?
Sure.
With Trent Williams and Alex Mack being the veterans they are, they don't have to do much right now. Justin Skull lined up at left tackle, Brunskill was at center, and Colton McKivitz was at right guard during drills with both Mack and Williams sitting out. And I know you're a big Colton McKivitz guy.
Well, I like McKivitz. It's Tom Compton that I got issues
with. It
was.
I knew I was going to get it mixed up too. I apologize. Jason, what are your thoughts on the backup lines as I make a mistake because I get people confused?
I think it just speaks to Jalen Moore being a little bit more of a project right off the bat and wanting to see what they got with McKivitz. Because remember, you invested draft capital in McKivitz, and he wasn't able to play last year. And when he did, he was okay. He was okay, but you just want to see what you have more than anything. And again, it's great that they have so many linemen because we can already see the injury bug starting to rear its ugly head. So, I mean, you don't really feed too much into anything like that, but it's good to see that they're going back to him, because it is interesting to see what they can get out of him, considering that they, invested draft capital into him.
Yeah, it's going to be more fun when we get to see what the offensive line looks with the addition of Alex Mack. Weston Richburg sounds like he's going to retire next month, which feels like it's more of a smart move on the 49ers part. It's going to clear $1.075 million from the cap space, so it's a little bit of wiggle room for the 49ers. Yeah. So we'll see what the offensive line looks with Mack. In terms of Bosa and Ford not being there, Bosa is currently rehabbing in South Florida. The 49ers fully expect him to be a part of training camp. And then D Ford has been rehabbing in Santa Clara with the 49ers since February, but they sent him home to be checked out by the doctor. He should be back in Santa Clara next month. So, hey, let's live in a world where we can pretend we get full Nick Bosa and D Ford. We haven't really gotten that combo yet with Ford missing, or we got a little bit of it in 2019. Both of them missed most of the season last year. So hopefully they can come back healthy and see what they can really do.
Right. And Jalen Hurd also is expected to be ready for camp. Coming off the ACL as well, too. So, you weren't really worried about Bosa, but Jalen Hurd and Jalen Hurd and D Ford, apologies, have been on the minds of 49ers fans as to what they can bring. I think everybody understands what Jalen Hurd can bring. They just haven't been able to see it, hasn't been able to take an NFL snap yet. And I think we all know what D Ford is when he's on the field. It's going to have to be a lot more situational now with his injury, but all good news so far. I mean, aside from the Jeff Wilson thing.
Yeah, and two, just as I did last week too, a lot of these notes I took. Matt Barrows went position by position yesterday, and kind of something he noticed. So go read that in the Athletic. I just kind of took what I thought was interesting, kind of like last week, because this is, as I said, this is all we really have is what the media is telling us with these practices and all that. Jaquaski Tart was on the side field yesterday. He's rehabbing. So the first team safeties were Jimmy Ward and Tarvarius Moore. The second team was, and I wrote down the pronunciation so I wouldn't mess it up, Kai Nakua and I forgot to write the other name, but it's the rookie whose name I'm drawing a blank out of USC.
Hufanga.
Hufanga. So that's what the safeties look like right now. I forgot to write down his name. I don't know. That's nothing shocking, especially with Tart rehabbing. So I don't know. That was what I found interesting with the safeties. There wasn't much in the defensive back news.
Yeah, and honestly, again, with 1 day of availability for the media, you're going to have to pick apart things that aren't really going to be important. Like we'll look back at, we should watch this episode in like another 3 weeks and look back and say, honestly, none of that had anything to do with anything. So,
yeah, Jason Aponte just spoiled our episode in 3 weeks. We're just going to rewatch this episode. So another thing that Matt Barrows, as Jason had to step away for a second, Matt Barrows said he had a name that he thinks people should know. Jonas Griffith. He's a undrafted free agent out of Indiana State. He was undrafted last year. Niners bring him in this year. He's 6'3". Last year he was 247. He's down to 230. The comparison he had was Fred Warner's size. And then, Jason, I had this last note I wanted to save specifically for you. With no Robbie Gould, Mitch Wishnowsky and Tabor Pepper worked out on their own.
Thanks.
So there's your kind of notes that I took away from the first day of practice for the 49ers. We're going to wrap up here in a bit, but Jason, you watched a bunch of press conferences yesterday. I didn't get a chance to watch them. So tell me what I missed. What do I need to know as a guy who didn't have a chance to watch the press conferences yesterday?
Honestly, the most interesting one, and this is not even really a shocker. Everybody wanted to hear what Jimmy Garoppolo was about to say. And Jimmy Garoppolo's interviews are so short, rehearsed answers, very easy. He's great at saying a lot with saying nothing and answering the question. But what I took away from what he was saying is he kept saying, I'm just here to do what I do. And that, to me, he said it about 3-4 times, seemed like he had a little bit more edge to him. Basically, it felt like, I've won all these games, and you want to get rid of me? Okay, so if that's what it really felt like. So look, you don't read too much into body language. You don't read too much into quotes, especially considering he is the king of the recycled, rehearsed, PR-driven quotes. But something about his attitude screamed, yeah, I'm pissed off about what's happened.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm playing for my job. I'm playing for my future in this league. And that's honestly a good thing. 49er fans should be psyched about the idea of him taking it that way. Look, words are words. We won't know until the bullets start flying how he's really going to react to this. But from all accounts, he did another interview today that kind of backed up the same thing. Like, yeah, I was pissed off when he got drafted. But it doesn't mean that he's going to wilt away from it. So if he wants to, again, 49er fans, check this out. If Jimmy G plays well, guess what? The 49ers win games. And guess what? It boosts his trade value. So if he's angry and he plays well, good, very good. The only thing is if he plays well, this Trey Lance thing, it's going to be super interesting. It's going to be super interesting because Trey hasn't played in so long. He could, if Jimmy Garoppolo plays to the expectation of, let's just say 2019, maybe he even takes a little bit of a step, then Trey might have to sit another year. So does that help his development? So this is a lot of moving parts here. Obviously this is easy to talk about and say, hey, you want to hear what Jimmy Garoppolo has to say, but man, I think this is going to be something. This is going to be the center of NFL talk, not just 49er land, not 49er land. This is going to be the center of NFL talk. If he has one bad game, one bad drive, you're going to start to hear it already. So I think this is super interesting, honestly. And I'm actually happy that he's pissed. He's saying all the right things right now. He looked like he had a little bit of an edge to him. Good for him. Go get it, Jimmy. Go do your thing.
I think my favorite line he had was like, yeah, I'm not going to force this relationship. We'll let it happen naturally. And that just sounded like a guy who was just like, I have to answer this correctly, but like, yeah, why do I want to help him? Like
I'm not mentoring him.
And I like that. I like that response out of him because, yeah, he should be pissed off about the Niners drafting a quarterback at 3. That's the unfortunate reality for him. I'm sure it's something he understands too a little bit, but that doesn't mean he can't be pissed off about it. And it's gonna this is gonna be a very it feels it's fun having a quarterback battle, knowing that the Niners can be good if everybody stays healthy, right? Like this isn't like the Niners are a 4-12 team truly, like, because obviously they're a 6-10 team last year, right? But that's not because they're a bad team. It's because they had all these injuries they had to deal with. It's fun seeing this battle kind of happen on a good team, because we've had plenty of, you remember the conversations of Alex Smith versus JT O'Sullivan? Like, those aren't quarterback battles that anybody wants to watch, where obviously no offense to either of them, it's just where the Niners were at that time. But this is one where it's very much because, yes, the Niners are going to be a very good team, and that's why it's going to get more attention than if, the Jets had Sam Darnold going against, Zach Wilson. Like, obviously that would get attention because it's New York, so it's not a great example, but you know what I mean? Like, the Niners being a good team, that's going to add more publicity to it.
Absolutely. And for everything, for the start, for the way that he's been answering questions, if he has that little edge and that little fire, good, Jimmy, be mad and go play mad and go play well. That's it. And honestly, and he said many times, I'm here to do what I do, almost reminding people I've won this many games. I'm a winner when I'm on the field. So that's what kind of gave me the vibe that he was a little bit on edge and he had a little bit more fire to him. Again, good for him. And 49er fans, if he plays well, the 49ers win games. That's it. Bottom line. And that's all you should really be worried about at this point.
Any other press conference things that stood out to you yesterday?
Yeah, Kyle took a bunch of questions about Trey and what's going on. And Kyle was saying, they asked him, they said, hey, is Trey everything you expected? And he said, yeah, he's a great human. He's like, and all that stuff is on tape. He's like, it's like one practice though. He's like, there's nothing, like Kyle's almost like, there's nothing really to tell you right now. Here's one thing that I'm going to float out to you. And I was just on Locked On 49ers pod with Brian Peacock, and we talked about this, but I want to talk about it here too.
Oh,
I don't think Kyle Shanahan, or let me phrase this right. I think Kyle Shanahan underestimated what's about to happen this year with this quarterback stuff. If you thought he was great last year, dealing with all the questions and stuff like that about the injuries, he's going to have to get these Trey Lance questions every single day, every single week, as long as this goes on. I think he underestimated this and thinks, I can control this. You are not going to be able to control this in any way.
I'm going to go a little more positive. I'm going to say this is a better stress for him.
Okay.
Yeah, the questions are going to be obnoxious. I know he's not a guy who particularly enjoys the press side of things. He famously once said, I don't know if we're going to be alive on Sunday. That little spiciness comes out of him when he's like, dude, just stop asking.
That's going to happen this year. That's going to happen this year a lot.
Oh, I cannot wait for press conference Kyle Shanahan this year. But I don't know. I just feel like him having two good options at quarterback is significantly better than him having to answer questions about, who's the starter next week? Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard, things like that. It's in terms of the decision making and the football playing, I think it's going to be a lot less stressful on him, because if Jimmy Garoppolo, and these are ifs, if Jimmy Garoppolo is announced a starter and if Jimmy Garoppolo, gets injured, misses a game, he turns around, he's like, well, this is the guy we handpicked. This is the guy that we visited another quarterback, and I was thinking about this guy the whole time, which is my favorite thing. That's pretty great. That's how much he liked Mr. Trey Lance, as he left Justin Fields' pro day just to drop plays for Trey Lance. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if I'm excited for the Halloween game against the Bears now, because Justin Fields might have heard that and was like, oof.
Thanks for the bulletin board material.
Yes.
He already looks upset. He looks like he's got the biggest chip on his shoulder. I've been keeping an eye on the Bears too, because how much we love Justin Fields. It's not that we want Trey to not succeed or anything like that. I just like the player and I want him to do well. But you bet your caboose. Yeah, I don't want to say caboose. Yeah, you bet your caboose that he's got that Halloween game circled, and I'm scared to death of angry Justin Fields, honestly.
Well, I think Justin Fields, he's in a position too where, like, I think there's like 4 or 5 other guys that are 4 or 5 other teams that could have drafted him. So it's going to be one of those, like, he has a list.
Yeah, he's mad. He's mad at he's mad at everybody, but I think he circled that one because if you look at him, when they handed him the hat, the Bears hat, he almost put it on like and now, and so yeah, he was mad, but I think there was a part of him that thought he was going 3. I mean, that's just me speculating at this point, though.
Yeah, I mean, at least it'll be a little easier for Justin Fields than it is. Is it Frank Gore? Because Justin Fields only has to name like 4 names before him. Doesn't Frank Gore like know all the running backs drafted before him? It's Gore, right?
I think so. It's somebody like that. I know there's a basketball player that has like every single person memorized, but that's a good thing. I would use all of those things. You don't need any more extra motivation to perform at a professional level. But honestly, that's a good thing to have because you can always remember and look back and everybody wants to prove other people wrong, especially when people bet against you. So again, same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo, same thing with Justin Fields. You could bet that they got that sort of thing on their mind at this point.
Yeah. Really, is there anything else that stood out? I mean, we've really reached the end of this line today, with it being one day. So any last things that stood out to you?
Just 2 things, honestly. George Kittle with the looks a bit more like a rookie comment, but he also said those are throws that not everybody makes. Sounds like he's saying that he hasn't seen somebody make those throws that's on this roster. So that's another thing as well. And the Fred Warner thing, man, he's so cool. He's so just, he understands the job. He's so smart. I'm huge year for Fred Warner this year. Don't worry, guys. The deal will get done. Here's my conspiracy theory on the Fred Warner thing. I think they're waiting for June 1st, around there, to see what happens with a certain someone. And if they have to kick money around and move it around, then you can start to talk about, hey, now we can do your extension. Just a thought. June 1st, someone is going to be available and needs to be moved because the Atlanta Falcons still have not signed any draft picks. Oh. So I think the 49ers are sitting around waiting to figure out if they're able to take on this actual contract from Julio Jones, if that's something that is possible. Then you've got to really kick around Fred Warner's extension and try to get creative with it because the 49ers have $10 million right now, and there's 3 rookies right now still not under contract. Yeah. So that's a bunch of money that's also got to come off as well, too. So they're going to have to get creative. So if you're also wondering what might be holding up Fred talks, maybe they're trying to figure out what happens with Julio Jones first.
See, and this is something the audio listeners don't get to see because they don't watch us, is I didn't know who Jason was talking about, and I'm pretty sure he saw me thinking, and he's just like, fine, I'll say it. I'll say the name, Andrew, just so you can connect the dots, because I was thinking really hard about who you're talking about, because I don't know, I kind of forgot about the Julio Jones thing, because nobody's really talked about it today. It's just kind of, my brain is very much like, what is everybody talking about today? And nobody called Julio Jones while they were live today, so nobody really talked about it. I was more Aaron Rodgers focused because like he's in Hawaii or I don't know what he's doing, but apparently he's in Hawaii and we make a big deal about life. That. He seems like somebody who doesn't really care what's going on in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But
no, he doesn't, honestly. And he talked about it. I know this has nothing to do with the 49ers, but he talked about it with Kenny Mayne, and he talked about that it was more about them not telling him about Jordan Love or anything like that. And Alex Smith doubled down on that today. He was on Colin Cowherd's show, and Colin Cowherd asked him, did they ever come to you about Patrick Mahomes? He said multiple times. They came to me and told me, this is what we're thinking about. Okay, now we're really, really thinking about it. Okay, now we're really close to doing this. And he was in part of that process the entire time. To not have Aaron Rodgers be a part of that process is a slap in the face. And that's why I still say he's not coming back this year and he's not playing unless they trade him somewhere.
Yeah, but it's he's just doing his thing, man. He's enjoying. Part of me thinks Aaron Rodgers is loving this.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's always been very brash. So it's not like he's being extra brash because of the situation with the Packers. He's just being Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know. It's kind of fun. It's fun to see what's going to happen with that. I mean, especially as 49er fans, we typically don't like the Packers. So it makes it a little more fun for that too.
Yeah. So. I mean, honestly, everything else from OTAs or anything like that else, it's nothing else that to really talk about. The press conferences were very much cookie cutter answers. Aside from body language, which is what now we're body language experts because apparently, and also when Kyle was asked about Julio, he started rocking. So I don't know what that means.
He started. I need to go back to my body language books and remember all this. He started rocking.
No, he started rocking and saying, listen, if you have a chance to get him, then yeah, you do. But we don't know if that's, he goes, but I'll never, this is what he said. He said, I'll never say we're done. And take that for what you want.
Well, he gave pretty much the same answer when he was asked about, the Matt Stafford stuff and the shit. Like, he's just like, yeah, we're always looking to get better. I mean, I think he even said as far as, I forget if he used a specific edge rusher name, but if an edge rusher came in and outperformed Nick Bosa, that edge rusher would be the week 1 starter too. So like, it just very much like nothing's ever set in stone until it is. Jason, we're about ready to get out of here. So like as I've been doing lately, how the Yankees doing? Let's get a little bit of that.
Game was rained out today.
Oh, game was rained out. Giants got the Diamondbacks. So yeah, that'll be it. We'll be back next week. I don't know, man. It's exciting because we're finally getting stuff in writing and seeing what this team is going to start to look like. The time for speculation is over. We're 2-3 months away from opening day, first week. I was going to look at the exact number of days away, but I forgot to because I'm great at podcasting. I do thorough research. I just had Jason watch the press conferences for me and tell me what happened. So that'll be it today, guys. We really appreciate everybody. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.